Hello and welcome to Tel Mora Independent Press interview. Today we have with us IceFireWarden. I am Andrew, also known as the White Guar, editor-in-chief of the Tel Mora Independent Press. LJ, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Um, Real life name is LaJaveyon Saunders, but everybody just calls me LJ or Warden in the community. I've been part of the greater lore community since around 2014, so when I was like a junior or a sophomore in high school.
All right. How did you first make your way into the Elder Scrolls series? What brought you here?
Well, I first played Arena way back when I was a little kid on this old ass 90 Windows 98 computer that my family kind of scrounged slash stolen slash whatever. I don't
Mhm.
know. I can't remember the details from school, and that's probably my first Elder Scrolls game. Couldn't really understand it, but I played it. It was fun. Pretty much speed up a little bit. A couple of years later, and after Skyrim came out, everything was pretty famous and everything. Got back into the series a little bit. I played other games before then, just off and on. Wasn't really too interested, and that's when I really kind of just got into the lore of the series. Was with Skyrim.
Okay. So how do you personally interact with the community? What are you known for in the community?
The big old green dragon himself, Barry. Even though my first post was about Hiss and Argonians, I still remember it. It was pretty fucking bad. It was like quantum. It was like quantum equations of something. But I always loved Argonians. That's why my profile pic is still an Argonian, even though I don't really talk about them that much. And afterwards, I was like, well, what's something in the community that nobody ever talks about and kind of like dislikes? Then I looked up the Daedra Princes and I was like, Periite, he's pretty cool. So I got into Periite and started writing about the songs of Perla Alkalelion, which are about how Periite was like a part of the Akka Oversoul. And ever since then, I just kind of took off with it. Actually, he's actually my favorite, pretty much my favorite character in the entire series now.
Okay, is there anything else that you've worked on that viewers or readers might be familiar with?
Mm, Argonians, his Periite. I've done some stuff on Such. I did world bidding on the Jaw Mark. I did a world bidding project known as the Uutak Mythos that went for a couple of years. I've helped other people out on some stuff. Me and Michael Ziegler, also known as Scourgicus, did a novel like a year or two ago, about an Ekmer and a Khajiit and their travels during post-Coda Orbis, which is pretty fun. I kind of dabble in a little bit of everything, but I think those are the ones I'm most well known for.
Okay, well you mentioned the Uutak Mythos. Um, Tell me about that.
The Utah Mythos was a pretty slightly mid-Coda thing that came out after while still in high school. The launch was pretty terrible. It was basically about how there's a race of bad elves that lived on the island archipelago of Uneslia, and how they were accidentally created by the drummer due to their total manipulations.
Gotcha. And
And
oh, go ahead.
well, no, you can continue.
Well, so what are you mentioned the Ekmer and their bat elves. Um, I mean, is this something that's been met with a lot of success? I mean, how big is this project?
Well, before it's technically ended now, but it it actually got pretty large for a while. I had some art done for it. It had a map that's still floating around somewhere. Pretty much it was just I kind of just at first I just wanted to do a couple of stories about these crazy forgotten mysterious race that lived in the Padmaic Ocean, and no one talked about. And then I just turned into their own culture, their own world, started retconning some things, started revising some other things, created their own pantheon, their own sorceries, characters. It pretty much took on a life of its own. I want to say it was quite successful in the sense that it was never particularly popular with a lot of people in the community. It got a lot of hate at first and still does,
Mm-hmm.
which is understandable. I didn't do as much of a good job with it as I hoped I could have. I still look back and wish I could do some changes to it every now and then. But I mean, it did. I know that way back when ZOS did their first writers AMA, someone asked about would the Ekmer ever be in the series, and I know Schick, um, he mentioned that he thought he found the theory a lot of fun, which I personally took that as a win because that made
Well,
my
yeah.
day. I was like, fuck yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, like, Michael Kirkbride helped me write the Uutak Mythos, the first stages of it, and then I had Schick tell me that he thought it was cool, so fuck yeah, of course, I'm going to ride
Okay.
that high horse all the way down.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got some very well-known lore names getting involved in your project, which that's really cool. What influences sparked the creation of the Ekmer? Where'd the idea come from?
Batman jokes for the most part.
Batman jokes.
That actually was the first Ekmer thing that was ever posted on the Best Soft forum. It was just me and MK making a Batman joke. It was just like fear the night, and it's like this picture of fucking bats and hanging out with Vivek and shit. And then of course people are like, "What the fuck is this?" And we're just in there laughing about it. But Batman jokes, a little bit of Bionicle, uh, of course steampunk. I always wanted to make the Ekmer a little bit more Victorian, but I never really got around to really conveying that. They became more like Caribbean, slightly Jamaican, German people, which was a really weird mixture.
Okay.
I tried to think of something else, but there's another thing that had that. Oh, oh, there it was. I don't know if anyone has read these books, but the Scott Fitzgerald wrote a trilogy called Leviathan, which is like World War II alternate history, where it's like basically Axis powers had mechas and the Central power and the Allies had like weird bio-organic mechanical creatures, so they fought each other, which influenced that a lot because I was reading that back then.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to take a look at that. Um. So what's changing subject here a little bit? What's a direction that from a point of now of current time, what's a direction that you would like the Elder Scrolls to take in the future?
In regards to the games or the lore or both?
Um, dealer's choice.
Well, games, I would say personally, I know that Todd Howard has come out and commented on that he doesn't want any of the Elder Scrolls games to be remastered anytime soon because he just doesn't like remasters in general.
Mhm.
But I will personally, regards game wise, I would enjoy if at least Daggerfall, Redguard, and Battlespire got remade for the current era because those are the three games that are very forgotten about. Arena too, but it's too big to really get remade unless they really made it super linear, and I think that takes the fun out of Arena. But Daggerfall, Battlespire, Redguard, especially the Redguard and Battlespire, which were very phenomenal story wise and introduced a lot of the shit that we talk about in the lore community today, deserve a remake, especially so. Probably not going to happen, but
No.
yeah, it'd be fun.
So
Lore,
basically, you just like to see these older games kind of given new life.
yeah, because I know everybody's always talking about going forward and seeing what's going on in the next game, but personally, the older games always has their own unique charm to them that the newer ones don't really measure up to. they made fun of themselves. They had more wackier NPCs. They weren't really afraid to be weird or be a little bit too mature for gamers nowadays to really get into. Uh, like for example, Battlespire, the Danger in that game were fucking terrifying, dude. They were weird. They were kind of honestly kind of rapey. they were very. They actually felt like eldritch cosmic demon dudes that were going to fuck your shit up. That game was basically about you making them your friends or making them your bitch. Either way.
Yeah,
Which I
kind of had some Doom sort of qualities to it.
yeah,
Yeah,
basically Elder Scrolls version of Doom mixed with Dark Souls, pretty much.
yeah, that's awesome. So you said you really got involved in the community around 2014 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that has the community changed over time, or has your influence in the community changed since 2014?
Uh, both definitely. Ever since Coda came out, and that started off that started off the quote unquote canon wars that's kind of divided the community up a lot from website to website, from group to group, and fanon to fanon. And personally, I don't really make any sense of it because Elder Scrolls as a whole was built up on through the value of the things the fans will write, which have made it into the games and still continue to do so in smaller quantities and more subtle ways that people don't recognize. But that this kind of aversion and over aggression towards the lore in itself and the people who love the deeper aspects or out of game sources of the lore is, in my opinion, just a little bit kind of fucked up. It's very noticeable. It's very detrimental to the community as a whole. Uh, it's just it's strange. You look at other fandoms, it's not really a big problem in those, like Halo to Lord of the Rings to Star Wars. Well, I'll take the Star Wars one back, but other ones.
Yeah, yeah.
But
The Star Wars is pretty famous for its canon wars.
yeah, but it's I think it's mainly because TS is double-edged sword is the unreliable narrator. Everything can be true. Everything can possibly not be true. Some people take it too literally. Some people don't take it literally enough. Some people just completely ignore it. That causes issues. That you don't really know what source you can trust. You don't know what person you can trust. Technically, all of us are just really lying to each other about, oh, this is what's going on in the lore, because we really don't know what's actually going on in the lore.
No,
Each of the developers.
so you could almost say that the amount of subjectivity in the lore is subjective in and of itself,
Exactly.
and that subjectivity, that sort of meta subjectivity, causes its own problems in the community. Okay. Um. So let's see here. Um. You often write fantasy pieces. I mean, we talked about the Uutak Mythos, and your Periite works. Um, you often write fantasy. What's the appeal for you in writing fantasy? What is it about it that you enjoy?
I think mainly stretches back to when I was a kid because I didn't really have that many people to talk to or many people to go out hang out with. A really weird, kind of rough home life. So fantasy always appealed to me as kind of an escape, kind of like a freedom measure and everything like that, which is partly why I latched on to the prisoner concept in my later years of being in the lore community, since it's all about freedom and reaching your overall goals and doing what you want to do. So for me, writing about fantasy and just really just it's just kind of just a metaphor of just finding what you want to do in your life and making something of it. Doesn't matter if it's working on a book, finding a job, making new friends, just all that links together into really just the whole fantasy outlook on life.
Okay. Uh, what do you think has been the biggest inspiration in your writing? What do you draw on?
Uh, Mainly just for Utah, it was Well, actually, for all my pieces, I actually realized a connection like a year ago that I write about a lot of things that other people don't like to write about. The more forgotten, more neglected things, which Period, Home Jaw March, you know, little islands in the Panamaic nobody even talks about, stuff like that. And I guess that my biggest inspiration is taking something that no one else cares about and turning it into something that everyone can care about, or at least everyone knows about. Like, Unesli will probably never be discussed in the actual game, but because of Uutak Mythos, everybody knows what Unesli is. Or there's an idea of what Unesli can be. Same with Periite. No one actually knows anything about Periite really because he's always neglected in every single game, especially ESO. Like, no quest whatsoever into Dragon Bones. But I write so much about Periite that, you know, everybody just kind of like, oh, this is so and so, so and so. This is what we can perceive about his character, and you can look back and like, well, IFW said that, or this is what he said. Well, this is what he thought about it, and well, he's kind of the central focus of that person. So I would say that really, it's just my biggest inspiration is, and my biggest thing to say to anybody who wants to write in the lore community is just find something that no one else talks about and make it your niche. Just roll with it. Make it fun, make it believable, and make it yours.
Okay. So what's your favorite passion project? What project have you had that's in the past that's been a highlight for you?
Um, Utah was the first. Then I got out of school and everything, and I just fell out of it. Right now, my biggest passion project is probably I'm Not the Hero, which is me and a little team of people are working on a little novel franchise, which it's a little bit of Lovecraft, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of gothic, and a little bit of sci-fi, all rolled into one. That's actually almost done. We just got a couple more hurdles to go through before we can start promoting and getting a website and actually marketing the book off. But that's pretty much my big thing right now. If anyone wants to, I might in like a week or two, I might release something about it if I can get all of it finalized and talk to some people about it. But I mean, it's just more or less the synopsis of it is imagine that humanity throughout the entire iterations of its existence has been dealing with eldritch forces beyond its control, and that this keeps getting wiped out because of that. And now you're getting to the genetic forebears of modern day humanity, and you get to see their story against fighting against these deities, against these strange, unknowable deities, and how they how they win and how they lose, and how they pretty much make sure that we actually exist in this modern day and age.
Would you say that I Am Not the Hero has any Elder Scrolls influences?
I like to say no, but it's impossible for me to completely ignore the fact that I spent a lot of my writing years in the Elder Scrolls community, and because of that, and because I've interacted with a lot of its writers and developers and ex-developers, there's going to be a lot of TES bleed into I Am Not the Hero. There's actually I have made a few shout outs to it in the work in some of the stories. There's a similar writing pattern in a little bit, but I've tried to make I Am Not the Hero a little bit more distinct, a little bit more, I guess, grounded. I don't know. I intentionally kind of left the unreliable narrator a little bit behind the door with this series because of what's been going on in the community for the last couple of years. But there's definitely a huge Elder Scrolls influence on the hero, and I'm proud that it's there.
So it's been noted in the last couple of years that you've kind of distanced yourself from the Elder Scrolls. What's your reason for that?
Canon Wars. Well, I'm not gonna say it like that because it's not exactly the full reason, but I was going through a bunch of rough patches in my life, and still am a little bit. So I had to distance myself from the Elder Scrolls community several times to work things out. And after a while, I came back and I didn't have the passion for it anymore. Tried to write a couple stories and it's kind of like couldn't finish it. Tried to write a couple lore essays and articles, couldn't finish them. I think like the last things I did for the community in regards to writing was the lore interviews I would do with Cinemax Online Studios, and I haven't done one of those in a long ass time. So I think it's just a mixture of just real life stuff and the hurdles and stress of things I had to go through in my day to day life, and just also had to put time to I'm Not the Hero, which is really taken off nicely, and just really just a mixture of those things. I still love TES. I still love the lore. I still love Paragite. I still love the Ekmer, even though they caused me a lot of fucking drama for a couple of years. But with all the canon wars and everything, with how some of the people in the community have acted, it's just plus what others outside influences. I just kind of had to take a step back and just go, can't do it anymore.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you. I thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me. Um, is there anything else that you want to do? You want to say? Let the readers or viewers know.
Uh, Not particularly. I do want to say that even though people still argue about canon and everything about Coda, about MK, about ESO and stuff like that, I'll just say that honestly, just the lore is what you make it to be. But at the same time, don't use the lore to be a validation of pretty much hating other people. The people who spent their time, developers, former developers, and even the fans who spent years writing stuff for the lore have really invested a lot of their time, energy, and pretty much life in essence into making something that started off as a D&D campaign in someone's basement, something that was a believable, breathable world. So I'll just have to say that make the lore something that treat the lore as you would treat your life, in a sense. It's serious, it's dramatic, it's funny, it's lovable, but at the same time, it's not something to hate. And the people who put behind all that energy into it, they did the best that they could to make sure that this is something that you can enjoy as a series and as a fictional universe that you can put your mind into and escape into as an outlet for your stress, for your annoyances, for your gaming pleasure. So don't mistreat it. Don't use it to belittle others. Don't use it as a weapon, which is funny because and ironic because there's a literal quote in the series: "Use lore as your armor and something as your weapon." But just be kind to others and have fun, really.
All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up here. So thank you very much for talking with me.
Always, man.
All right, and we'll see you next time.